So, Alan, that the next one is conservation. And, well, it's about waste not, want not. If everything we perceive is understood to be manifestations of God's source energy, essential for our being here, for our life, we will all enjoy more respect, more appreciation, and more conservation around and about everything that we do in life. So there again, it's adding more value for whatever it is that we have in life, material things, the value of life around family, community, your country, and the universe.
Right.
So it's a very important sense of value to have in life, the awareness of conservation. And all in the universe is actually given to us freely in a form, but nothing is valueless or wasted. So it's, for me, since during my journey of working more and more with the high consciousness, spiritual integrity, my sense of value and conservation of everything around my life is just made me think and feel more about my own self-value and worth, brings me more into the ease of consciousness of loving myself much more beautifully and more strongly.
Can I ask you a few questions about
Yeah.
conservation? There's a few things that are popping to mind. And the first thing that pops to mind is the society that we live in, certainly in the West, especially if you have a family that I was to a zip popped off one of the kids' jackets. This just popped into my mind as you were talking about, and I wanted to get the zip mended, but it was cheaper to get a new jacket than to get the zip mended. Do you think that, with conservation in mind, it would be better to get it mended or to buy the new jacket, or am I? How do you feel about that? Because I'm wondering now, maybe I should be. It's more important to look after the things we have, keep them clean, mend them, than be buying new things. Is that?
Yes, yeah, it's a wonderful question. It's a beautiful question. It's something that is very common here in Mexico. People don't things away. They fix things.
Yeah.
And recently I had a wonderful experience where I had 4 pairs of lovely shoes, but the soles and parts of them were scratched and they'd become very grubby. And I can tell you, in the past, what I would have done was thrown those out, and without a moment's consideration, got into my car, drove into town and bought more shoes. Here, a lady told me, "Oh, my uncle will fix those for you." And oh my God, the job he did on the 4 pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
And I have to say now that when I put those shoes on, I really have I have even more sense of value for them. He did a wonderful job, and they're all new pairs of shoes, and it cost me very little money.
Yes.
So now, but it's interesting you said there it costs more to get the zip fixed than buy. It's cheaper to go and buy. Here it's not actually. There are so many services here. People making clothes, fixing things, stitching, all of that. That sense of smaller business support is very, very popular here. And, well, it's a necessity as well.
Yeah.
So, but yes, I think that it's a wonderful practice to get into. If it doesn't cost, is it costing a lot more, by the way, to get the zip fixed, or by the
No,
jacket?
it wasn't a lot more. I think it was about €20 to get the zip fixed, and I think it was actually probably a little more to get, but you can buy a kid's jacket over here for 23 or €24.
Yeah. What I would say, if you did take the jacket and got it fixed, you will experience a great sense of a different value. I know that for the other wonderful thing that I know you would be doing is teaching your children. The value of that, I think, is probably worth those few extra euros. What you're teaching your children is to really respect what you have.
Look at.
And that's really about a sense of gratitude. In this journey of spiritual growth, one of the most powerful tools to use is gratitude. And to begin, if you're working towards changes in your life, and you work from now, and you look around at what you have and feel a great sense of gratitude to have now, rather than saying, as I said yesterday, living life with the glass half empty and not half full, you're building up a very high frequency, and that in itself will attract more abundance, more positivity into your life. So yes, I would go and get the zip fixed and really teach yourself the appreciation of what you have now, rather than throwing away and buying new. You're really teaching your children a wonderful sense of value also of what you have.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it's a little bit incongruent for me to tell them that they should clean the room and look after their stuff if I'm also throwing stuff out, because it's just very little difference in price.
Yeah.
Also, as far as conservation is concerned, I've had times in my life where I've had lots of money, and I've had times where I've had next to no money at all. It's funny that I can live on next to nothing, but if I'm at a time in my life where I'm making money, you seem to spend a lot more without realizing, and you suddenly you could live on next to nothing, and then suddenly you're living on a lot more, and it's difficult to go back then. But it seems to be the more you earn, the more you'll spend, and does that kind of violate the conservation law?
Well, you're not really, you're violating yourself in a way. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
After having the experience of having a lot of money, spending a lot of money, and then living the experience of having less money, a lot less money, has the contrast between those two experiences, has it changed, or can you reflect the changes in the experience that you've had in relation to the value of what your sense of value of what you have now?
Yeah.
Do you value more, or do you respect more the things that you have? You're more aware that, well, I can use that again, whatever.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I'm more of a, and I think whether I have money or not, I'm more of a mind of, I like to get something and look after it. If I have something in the house, keep it clean, look after it. And you don't need, like, let's say a carpet, you don't need to replace it, just look after what you have.
Yeah.
I'd be more of a mind of that kind of way. The big change for me was, I remember when I had more money than my peers, I would have felt slightly guilty that I had more money. That was, and when I was talking, if I was just talking to them, I would have felt, I don't know if it's guilty is the right word, but it was a weird kind of feeling that
you didn't feel that you should deserve it.
I think that's what it was, actually.
Just suggesting that as an idea.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And so when I have no money, I feel a bit more connected to people, that there's no kind of barrier, that little barrier that was there. But I think for me, it was just learning the differences. I do like to live in a world where I can easily pay bills and do the things I want to do. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but I did feel a little bit, there was a kind of guilt or deserving issue. But I think that's more to do with that the work I was doing, although I enjoyed the work and I was good at the work, I wonder if it was really congruent with what I should have been doing. I think it was to some extent, but it was a learning process to bring me closer to things that I should have been doing, I think.
Well, you used the word, you were feeling guilty, and I suggested maybe you didn't feel you deserved it. Really, that's not, we're all entitled to feel a sense of security, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and in all of that, all those areas of security is, having a roof over your head, to provide for yourself and your family. Those are very normal expectations, and you do deserve them. You have a human right to have those in your life.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that the areas the area and the reason why you had those negative emotion feelings, guilt and not deserving, a sense of, is coming from an old wound, coming from a negative memory from the past, and that's what we're working with you on in the background, or deeply, is to work through those. And when you understand it and let them go, you will come to a point where certainly, yes, you will have a sense of awareness of other people's situations, You won't feel guilty of about your own sense of growth and abundance. You will really
Right.
enjoy more and more, but you will also be in the frame of mind to be open to help others, to expand in kindness, and all of these principles of mastery of spiritual integrity. They all create very high frequency. So it brings all the areas of life into a stage of great value, including great financial support.
Right. Yeah, because for me, I've always been in mind I like to see people being successful and people doing well,
Yeah.
and I think that we do live in a world where everybody can do that. There is enough money in the world or rich in the world and for everyone to. I like it's not the American dream as such, but the that people can follow. People have the opportunity to follow what their heart is bringing them towards, because certainly in the West, I think everybody can pretty much do that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't
And
know
there is a
about.
lot of background support, education. I mean, Ireland, my goodness, the amount of support there is in many areas to get to get up and running in business and etc. So yes, but if we're feeling those sensations of guilt because you have more than another, there's just an old memory there that needs to be, because that's not really conservation. That's
Right.
fear of some form of abundance, and it's just an old memory from the past. And I say
Yeah,
just, I don't mean just, it can be a powerful hold on the growth of consciousness, but it be shifted and moved on and
yeah, and I think you're
changed.
absolutely right. And the big thing that kind of comes to my mind as well is why you are gathering the abundance. If you're gathering the abundance out of fear and that protection, that's one thing. But if you're gathering it to live a comfortable life and have the people around you in a good place, and it's just about having enough there to pay your bills and do the things you want to do, it's a different vibration, the two of them. One is a real fear vibration, but the other one is
Exactly,
just
yeah.
yeah.
And the other one, it is a higher vibration because you really are growing with the awareness for the good of all. You're prepared to share, which you also know your values, when to say no and when to say yes, and it's another form of conservation. If we look at
Yeah.
nature, the tree, this beautiful big oak tree, wherever it is in anyone's garden, is not saying to the birds, don't come here. You can't build your nest here. It's open and inviting, but there's still boundaries. And when I say limits, I don't mean that in a negative way. Boundaries and rules and regulation so that the conservation can flow abundantly.
Yes.
Sense of what we're doing. So it's conservation helps us to have a different view a better view, a higher view of the value of what it is that we have around us, all the
And
things that we have around us.
yeah, and the great thing about the limits or the rules of nature is that they're very, very clear. Like the law of gravity, if you jump off a cliff, it doesn't matter if you're a good or a bad person.
Yes,
You're still
yeah,
bound by the laws of gravity, and they will say no. But at least you know what they are. You know, laws of physics or the laws of nature.
yeah.
There's one more question that is kind of coming into my mind now. I don't know if this fits into what we're talking about. So if it doesn't, we can leave for later on. The other thing that I'm thinking about is credit cards and debt and banks. I don't know if that fits into this category or not.
Well, it does also, yes. I feel it does. So continue with the question. I'm interested.
Yeah. So as far as conservation is concerned, do you think that a lot of people these days, particularly in the West, anyone who owns a house has a mortgage, and a lot of people will live on credit cards? And does it make sense to do that, or should you just live on money you've earned? Or is it a lot of people do live on will live on loans from banks? And if you start a business, a lot of people will have a loan from a bank. And from your point of view, is it wrong? I know from certain religions at a certain point, the Christian religion at some point was against the practice of lending money, and I think The Jewish religion was always okay with it, but I think the Muslim faith don't
Well,
don't believe in usury and stuff like that.
yeah,
The Christians didn't at one stage, but I think it's okay now. But I was
yeah.
wondering your opinion on it.
Yeah, well, it's if I borrow something from you, Alan, and I'm using it to create something for the better, for the good of all, and I
Mm.
use it with respect.
Yeah,
And okay, you have rules and regulations. Says, okay, you borrow that from me, Bernie. Can you give it back to me in good condition, and maybe just for the value of it, give me that extra something back with it? Okay. And if when I borrow it and I use it with the full intention of its purpose, create what it is I want to create for the good of all, and I don't abuse it. A wonderful, wonderful support, right?
yeah,
Doesn't matter whether it's money, a car, I don't know. It can be anything. I'm just to help one helping the other.
yeah,
And that's what I feel the purpose of the banks are also. And it's wonderful. I mean, the banks helped me. I had a new mortgage on a house, built up a wonderful business. And for the most part, I always followed the rule of paying my bills and all of that. So all of that is good cooperation and collaboration. And I'm sure the oak tree has an arrangement with the crow. There's something going on there that you respect what I have and I respect what you have. What happens then is, we mentioned earlier, we're bombarded all the time on media, television, radio, newspapers. Buy this, get that, told that if you don't have this and you don't have that, you're not alive, you're not a full person, this is going to make you feel better, and they're all material things. I can tell you most of them, we don't really need them.
yeah,
And we begin to attach to that thing to say, well, this is who I am. I have this beautiful big car. This is who I am. That is not what you are. This is where the danger begins to develop, is that the ego says, oh, you must have that, you must have that. And then the banks, yes, everybody, the bank is responsible also. Whoever is loaning, whatever I'm borrowing from you, and you say, look, I need a little bit more. Can you give me a little bit more of whatever it is that I need? And then I come back again and you say, hey, Bernie, what exactly are you doing? Because I actually feel you don't need all of that to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So it's all very good to have great support to build whatever it is you want to build. You've got to watch your own sense of needs and respect the limits. That's my responsibility. It's your responsibility not to allow me to abuse it. It's my responsibility to myself to watch myself. No. Do I really need a new car when I know I have to buy? I have 3 months arrears on a mortgage. I do buy that extra, I don't know, whatever. Actually, I had a meeting with a lady recently, and her energy was very down, very tired, and I said, well, what's wrong? And she said, well, financially, this, that, and the other, and these people have, in my opinion, far too much.
yes,
Only in the respect that their credit card is maxed out, right? And her husband is only working now to pay off. They may lose their house. He does have a good job. They took a holiday last year. She said, we really couldn't afford it, but we felt we deserved the holiday.
right.
Now listen to that. We could not afford the holiday, but we felt we deserved it. They maxed out her credit card, and now he's just working to pay the interest off on the credit card, and he's under so much pressure,
Right.
right? So when she asked my opinion, I said, you're not going to like my opinion. I said to her, if it was me, I certainly would not have gone on that holiday, knowing that I did not have the money. I said, so in a way, we're stealing from ourselves and staying from the future and putting yourself under a lot of pressure. So is that conservation? No. So there's in all the areas around financial support and loaning and paying back, each person has their own 100% responsibility to act with integrity, to respect the laws and regulations and pay back the money, right? But that's not, I've been there myself, got caught in a situation where took on a huge project and realized it didn't go according to plan, got into a financial situation. But we did find our way out. I worked towards it and came to a settlement, and everybody was happy with it. But I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
that situation.
That's everything we have for conservation.
So
effort.
the next one is cooperation and diplomacy, and it's to learn to agree to disagree respectfully, right? With the whatever it is that's happening in our lives, and particularly with other people.
Yeah.
And it's to try to create win-win situations. Existence that will always be a co-creative endeavor.
Yeah.
Giving genuinely is always a way, is a natural way of being. You know, if we go back to the oak tree again, the oak tree is there, and it's just a very natural, open givingness of the crow can come and build a nest in the tree. In that, rules and regulations.
Yeah.
We might not always agree with the intended creations of others, but we all have our right to our own point of view. So, like, diplomacy is a bridge between the forces of opposition. And you're entitled to your view, and I'm entitled to my view, and that we need to respect that. I mean, our conversations here, you have your view, and I have my view, and we're defending or arguing it.
Absolutely.
We're collaborating with the idea of the information.
Yeah, and it's what makes it interesting as well. If we were exactly the same person, it wouldn't be very interesting. It's the fact that we are different people that makes it more interesting.
Yeah, and we're all coming from different perspectives. So your life experience has created your view on things, and mine and mine. But we can learn if we can take the time and we have the respect to stop and listen to the person, even though you may not agree. That at least you're understanding the other person and you're listening from their point of view, and maybe you're listening to their pain. You don't know the background of their life. So cooperation and diplomacy is to come out of judgment, be the listener, and try and hear really what is behind the words or the idea that the person is presenting.
Yeah, I find that myself. A lot of times when I'm listening to people, I find myself wanting to jump in, but now I hear in my head, just shut up and listen.
Yeah,
which is very good advice, because when you start listening to someone, usually just you colour what they're saying straight away, and there's things that come into your head. But if you do shut your own mind up and listen for a period of time, like actively listen, you do get a lot clearer what they are actually saying to you.
Exactly. This law of cooperation and diplomacy, we can learn to disagree respectfully. So cooperative co-creation can progressively evolve to a higher level of experience, a higher level expression, so that you really are listening. And that's on all levels of life, between yourself and your spouse, you and your children, in your community, in business, in all areas of life, is to be cooperative and listen, and try and always work towards creating win-win situations. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I
we're on number 11 now. We've one more. 12, and this is sense. Learning to identify and appropriately apply both common sense and the uncommon sense.
Right.
What's that? It's a spiritual knowing will allow us to establish the greatest balance of energy expression within all our lives. It's just learning to identify and apply common sense.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of it's trying to teach yourself not to be so judgmental, and as you said earlier, jumping in with your idea, jumping in with your maybe old reactions and memories. Well, I don't want to do that. That's not the way we did it, or I doesn't feel comfortable with me. Sometimes we have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone, well, a lot of times in this process, because you're coming out of your own comfortable box of perception of how it was always done in the past, and to a new sense of being and seeing things differently. So it's about stepping back and looking and reflecting and not being so impulsive with actions and ideas and actions.
Okay. And just when you were starting there, the only one I was slightly confused on, the common sense and the uncommon sense. I'm just confused on the uncommon sense.
Okay, well, The uncommon sense is about really, it's this great journey that we're on, the great unknown known, or the known unknown. In this process of spiritual integrity and growth, and the work that we're doing in the background personally, Alan, you're beginning to experience a whole new way of being and seeing things.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So sometimes people will present an idea and it just feels really unfamiliar to you. And you say, I don't know, I don't know what to do with that idea. So it's to be willing to be open to that. So when I say uncommon, it's unfamiliar. Sense of spiritual knowing, to allow it to develop and grow within yourself, to allow yourself to expand. So it's a sense of being open to learn and be more.
Right.
And I said, get out of your comfort zone.
And would part of that be like inspiration and that kind
Yes,
of thing?
inspirations, and it's part of it. All of these are interlinked. It's about really being open and willing to be respectfully present with the other person, listening to the new ideas. You know, my other life, I was a garden designer, landscape architect. One of the most wonderful skills I developed was when I went to meet a client about a new idea of the garden. I would go in and say, oh, that there, and put this here and that there and all of that. No, I learned very early that, gosh, there's great value and that's why I'm there, to really sit down and listen to what the person wants, right?
Yes,
so for me as a good
exactly.
designer, I need to have the ability to sit down and really listen to what the person wants. But that then, as a designer, it's my ability to put that in order in the best way possible. Now, I may say to a person, it's not a good idea to put that tree over there because eventually it's going to grow to this height and the roots may interfere with the foundation of, etc. But we could put another tree that would, right. So it's just to be respectfully listening and be willing to listen to the other person's point of view and grow from that in this beautiful set, because the other person has got great ideas as well, and not let your own ego control the situation because, I'm this great designer. I was a very good designer, still am, but I'm only as good as I am through the experience of respectfully taking on board what the other person wants, because every person is different. It's different things and different ideas. So through that, I expanded a lot and gained a lot more experience.
Do you want to put their own stamp on it as well?
And of course, as they're paying the money, it's their garden. They have every right to do that. But it really did. I expanded so much in different ideas by applying my ability to create what they wanted, not what I wanted.
Yes. Absolutely. No, I know exactly what you mean. You know, when I used to go to meetings initially, I used to go with a lot of ideas, but after a year or two, I realized I just need to go with a blank sheet of paper and a pen to make sure I remember everything they tell me.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
There are some graphic designers or who suggest that you actually do a couple of things wrong so that the client can have some input and feel like they've built it to some extent, so they can see the things that are wrong and they'll say, I don't want that. But you've obviously done them wrong just so they can have an input.
I wouldn't agree with that. If you're going in intentionally to do wrong to build the ego up of the other person, no. That I really believe in acting in total honesty and integrity. Do the best you can. And nothing is actually, in a process of developing something new, there's nothing actually wrong. If something is not fitting in with totally the way that the client or you feel, because there's room for more growth.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not wrong. But I would never intentionally set up something negative and to build up the ego of the other person. That's my own ego. That's a big ego trip. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not offending anyone out there. Yeah, you would lose trust. So, because what I found in my work and in the spiritual growth work as well, if just say to a person, they may have a question, you say, actually right now I don't know the answer to that, but I know where and how to find it, and I'll do the best I can. Sometimes people would have ideas that maybe they experience something traveling somewhere. Well, I said, that's new for me. And when you're really open and honest with people, they trust you.
Yes,
that's
true.
You can say, well, I'll do the very best I can to figure that out. And if I can't do it, I would say, I'm sorry, that's out of my league, and I won't do something that I know that I can't. follow through at the very end and that you don't have a great product at the end. But let's try and find somebody else. So then you're cooperating, creating win-win situations.
No, I agree with you 100%. One guy did say it to me, and I, where he was coming from, which I can understand to some extent, was that as a designer, he is very, very talented. He made some amazing things. But the issue he had, for example, if he was working like with a golf club and there was a committee that everybody wanted to have an input, that once everybody had an input, it was like did you say a horse built by a committee is a donkey, and he was afraid of having too many inputs, and then it ruins his initial vision or design.
Well, I think in a situation like that again, it's getting back to the sense and the diplomacy and listening to other people. If you have gone into that situation, you've taken the decision to go into a situation like that. First of all, you've got to take responsibility for that, right? Then, yes, each person has got to be listened to with respect. After that, then remember, you have to respect your own situation. They have asked you to come in as a designer. That is your forte. That's what you are good at. And this is where sometimes I would have to pull my power in and say, in a respectful manner, and say, I'm sorry, as an excellent designer, I do not feel that is supporting the product correctly. And I would stick to my guns with that and say, I'm sorry, but I would only come to that point when I really felt I had to say it, because that is my area. And I would say to me, this is my area. If this was your area, I wouldn't be here and you would not be asking me to look at this. I need you to respect. Right. So it kind of is, that's a win-win situation also.
But it fits you were saying earlier on about being able to say no in a respectful way, which is something I guess he had to learn. I think it's something that I have to learn also,
Yeah. But you will learn that through this process of loving yourself, understanding who you are. So the ego is not there we're not trying to build ourselves up through fear, insecurity. And I mean, there are many, many brilliant designers, but if there's a sense of, I'm better than you, I'm entitled to through fear or demand or defense. Yeah, it can be, troubles can grow around that.
Yeah.
So the sense of really knowing yourself and who you are in whatever field of work that you are, as parents, as partners, as neighbors, whatever, that you are making decisions from a deeper sense of knowing. That's going back to the uncommon sense, right? It's a familiar sense that becomes familiar, of a spiritual knowing. And it really will allow, as I said earlier, to establish a greater balance of energy expression in all aspects of life.
Yeah.
So this is why this journey is so important for us all, in a sense that we're being the best individuals that we can be for the good of all in all areas of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny the way they all kind of fit together, because the conservation will fit with saying no, and they all kind of it's a one whole if you kind of take them all together.
Exactly. You bring them all together. You combine conservation with self-discipline. You could combine patience with conservation, patience with cooperation, sense with self-actualization, self-love with spiritual integrity. Yeah. They become this one wholeness. I love that word, that expression, and that you see that, Alan, so clearly, that you put them all into action, and we have opportunities every single moment of our life to put them, any one of them, into action. Be familiar with the information also. And I work with these principles as a really basic grounding foundation with all of the people that I'm guiding to teach them to experience a different life experience. And it's a very important point also that when you put these into action, this uncommon sense of knowing comes into play into your conscious, and it allows you to accept, allows you to see more clearly the reasons for your conflicts. Right. Because you're through this, your consciousness is connecting to a higher source of information. When you're already connected to that, you are being supported on a magnificent universal way, and it's so much easier to let go of the conflicts from the memory of the past, the baggage from the past. So powerful to build up the knowing first, or in line with letting go. Letting go without this support is, in my opinion, very difficult. It's almost impossible. Does that make sense? Are you connecting?
It does really. When you say letting go without the support, yeah, I'd imagine that's very dangerous, because sometimes what letting go, they taking big chances sometimes.
Exactly.
And
as you said, you mentioned earlier, I don't know if I'm making the right decision. Now you can understand it. You won't know if you are making the right decision without the support of what I call, another word for these great laws is the laws of the universe, the laws of God, the laws of source. And these are wonderful combination guided information, guided support to help you make that common sense or uncommon sense decision. Uncommon being unfamiliar. Oh, I don't really know what to do here now. Well, if I put these 12 responsibility of mastery into action, well, that's my decision. Sometimes you've really got to go through the experience of trusting in your decision. Another wonderful and very important point about all of this work is that in relation to putting these actions into order is that in my case, when I do something that was what I considered on reflection that was not the best thing to have said or done, I will go back immediately to that person and say, yesterday I did this or whatever. I do not feel that it respected me, and I don't feel it respected you. I would like to say that I'm sorry and I take it back.
Okay.
Right? You have no idea of well, I'm not saying you don't have an idea, but many people, you have no idea of the spiritual power and integrity you will receive. But also the most beautiful is the amount of respect you will get from the other person.
Right. Yes.
Right. And they trust you, because I have had in my own personal relationship here in Mexico and other people, one person said to me recently, do you know why I trust you? And I said, you are the most responsible person I know. And I said, why do you say that? Because of your ability to come back with honor and say to me, I'm sorry, when you know you have not been correct. Now, and that's spiritual integrity, and there's a lot of power in it. But there will be resistance from the ego in the beginning when you start this. Now I just do it. And because I know the healing, I know the support, I know the greatness and the goodness of all that is in that action for me and for everyone around me.
Right, yeah. No, it makes perfect sense to me. There's times going through my mind now where I should have gone back and said, listen.
Well, maybe right now don't say I should have, that I am willing to be prepared to put this in practice.
Yes.
Past is the past, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You can send love and light and say, in this moment now, and if anything comes up in the future, reflect on the situation. Whenever I find myself growing into a situation where I'm going into conflict with the other person about their view. I'm doing this for many years. I'm not perfect, believe you me. I have my moments. But I have now practiced it for many, many years, and I'm able to do it. When I feel this sense of, oh, God, don't like where this is going, and I'm feeling relative negative energy growing within my system, I always put my hand on my chest area and heart, and I say, please, I choose to stop. I'm not getting into a fight. I will not allow this to grow into a mountain of negative information and energy. Choose to walk away, and I need to reflect on what is happening. Now, what is actually really happening in a situation? You can never have a conflict with another person unless that same conflicting information experience is a part of you. How can you know, I'll ask you this question, how could you know what you do not like about another person or a situation or action? How can you know what that is if it's not already in you?
Yes, I actually know exactly what you're saying, because I won't answer the question, but this is really interesting for me. This
Okay.
really means something to me, because I found that everybody has habits that they do that they don't like, and they probably
Exactly.
even don't know that they do them. But when you have small kids, it becomes very, very clear, because they idolize you. They do exactly what you're doing, and you see them doing something at some stage that you don't like. Now, I got the knowledge very, very early on that these were things. I think a lot of parents don't realize this, but a lot of things that their kids do that they don't like are things that they do themselves,
Yeah, the parent
and
is doing themselves.
the
You're
parent is
spot
doing it. That's
on.
where the kids are getting it.
Yeah.
So I learned quite early that if there's anything that I see my kids doing that I don't like, I've got to change it in myself. I can't even mention it to them. I've got
Exactly.
to change it in myself.
Alan, that's so wonderful. I'm so touched, emotionally moved by what you just said. That's it. To repeat that again.
Okay, yeah, I got the knowledge quite early that there's certain habits that you do that I wouldn't even know I'm doing them.
Exactly.
And when it might be just saying an awful lot, when you're having a conversation or something like that, or whatever it happens to be, and you see your kids doing them, and straight away you get in your body you get a.
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
But a lot of, because it's so personal, but a lot of parents, I think they kind of react viscerally to the child. But I realized quite early that if there's anything like that going on, I've got to look at me and find out where that is in me, change what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and not even mention it, because once I change me, the child will change automatically, so that you don't even have to
Exactly.
worry about what the child's doing.
So now, what is when I say to you, the child is your mirror in front of you. They're reflecting back to you something in you that you can change. Now, if you can take on board every conflict in your life in that way, you have got such an amazing ticket to freedom,
Right.
because every conflict in front of us is something, it has come up in your life experience as an opportunity in this very moment for you to reflect on it, that, well, part of that must be me because I recognize it. And the hard thing is to accept it. But if you practice more and more and accept it, okay, and I want to change it, I promise you it'll change so fast. Yes. And in that process, when you go in and you can have conversation with the person, and you're teaching them, this is where, there's a powerful spiritual integrity. You go back and say to me, that reaction I had yesterday, I know that is 50% of me, or maybe all of me. You're showing me I need to change in me. I'm going to do it. I apologize, and I take back what I said, my reaction, whatever it was, and thank you for showing me. Okay. Now, when you present that information to the other person, it is, first of all, an amazingly powerful frequency.
Yeah.
It's a powerful healing frequency. You can now see what a powerful teaching that is a person.
Yes, absolutely.
And first of all, because they will be very, very humbled by the fact that you've had the power. I've had many people say to me, God, I could never do that. What you have just done, come back and said that and take back. I said, yes, you can. And I said, there's great freedom in it. And I'm at peace now. I'm at peace. Yeah. So yes, Alan. But I mean, obviously you don't have to say it to your children, but it's saying a lot about you, Alan, that you are in that, at that level of awareness, that you saw that immediately. My God, children are showing me my own negative habits that don't serve me well.
Yes.
And that's the purpose. Now, if we want to, I like to put a purpose to everything. Spiritual, meaningful purpose of intention, ability, opportunity to grow. Yeah. Every conflict in life, no matter how small or big, is an opportunity to grow. Cannot know the knowing of that conflict if a part of it is not already in you. So every conflict in front of you, you are looking in the mirror. Now, when as a practice, sometimes if I'm in conflict with someone or in a situation, and I can't figure it out immediately, what I do is I will go upstairs to my bathroom, and I will stand in front of the mirror. I will look at myself in the mirror. I will say to myself, what just happened now, whatever the conflict was, I don't know what it is. And I can't figure out where it's coming from. I know it's in me. And I look at myself, I accept it. And I just say, universe, show me. But I'm looking at myself, taking full responsibility. And I promise you, the wonderful wisdom of the universe will show you very, very quickly when you go and look at yourself and take on that role of self-responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think the one thing I need to add to it, though, is that I think you're 100% right. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier on, that a lot of the problems in your life come from earlier.
Exactly.
I can see some of that now because you did some healing work with me and some meditation. It really, really helped, and I can see a lot more now than I could have before. But I think it's very difficult for people to see that, where
if you
the
practice
conflict's coming
it,
from, and unless they do some sort of healing or something like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. In this process, even people listening to this conversation, it's a process of healing, but it is also a very good idea to connect with a guide, a person who is experienced in this line of work, to guide you through the memories of to guide you through the attachments to the memories of the past. Now, your question also has inspired me to make one more very important point. We have gathered up so much information from childhood and memories from past generations. They're all in our cellular memory. Okay, and as one lady said to me, "Oh my God, how am I going to clean up all of that?" She has a very difficult history in her family. Right. How can I clean all that up in this process? Well, I said, it's not a case now of trying to go in there and remember every single negative moment that we've had. If it hasn't been cleaned up, it's still there, right?
Yeah.
So how does it come out? It will come up and out through conflicts with other people. This is the healing process. It's not just working with somebody like me for a year and it's all hunky-dory and you're flying around like a butterfly full of love and light all the time. I teach people the tools of how to handle everything in a way that it will give you that uncommon sense of knowing. Yeah. So you have a conflict. I had a conflict recently and it happened so quickly and so amazingly fast. I said, wow, it kind of threw me off guard. And I said, my God, where did that come from? And I got into the conflict with the person. So, sorry, something going on here. Sorry, I'm stepping back. So I stepped back and went on my reflective journey. And the simplest little thing, it was a conflict when something had happened in my past in school, right? Nice. But at the time, it had a very strong impact on me. That particular situation that happened recently just brought back up the memory for some moment. And I just accepted it was my time to remember, time to let it go. And this is why this teaching is so powerful. Imagine if you're able to accept every little conflict or big conflict in your life as an amazing, powerful opportunity to grab hold of that crap, that shit, like a brick in your hand and fling it away and say, I never want that again. Go back to the other person and say, probably in tears, thank you for showing me. Imagine the peace in the world. And that's what conflict is for. Taking on, and almost, I don't know how you could get that information through to governments and people in conflicts and wars, that there's something there, big and small, to teach us all something to get back into peace. But use it as a tool to heal your own past memories. Conflict.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. I don't think you even need to get to governments, because governments are governments and they're going to do what they're going to do. But they only do it with the consent of people. If people have cleaned up their own stuff, then you don't really need to worry about what governments are going to do.
Absolutely. And that's what it is. We are our own self-government. And I can promise you that if you work with governing yourself with the highest of integrity, nothing can harm you.
Yeah.
You're protected.
Yeah, no.
That was a very powerful conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And I agree 100%. And I think the most powerful thing that people can do today is just bring children up well, because that does change tomorrow. And governments can have all kinds of nuclear weapons, but they can't do much with people who are awake and enlightened, or whatever you want,
Exactly.
whatever label you want to put on it. Then, if people don't want to fight, like they're going into Syria now, but there was a big movement against America going into Syria, and they couldn't do it the way they wanted to do it because there was a huge movement against it, and then there's the Occupy Wall Street, and some of it is been ignored, but the more movement there is against it, the less people in power can do.
Yeah, and in positions of power, there can be a lot of ego, and people are not aware of it. They're working from a side of empowering the ego and not empowering the highest level of spiritual integrity for the good of all. And that's a process for us all. In our own little self-governing areas in life, we can be little ego vampires as well. So, but if we really, as you said earlier, govern yourself, yes, and you're on the path to freedom then.
Exactly.
So those are the 12 responsibilities of mastery: self-actualization, self-sovereignty, self-containment, self-discipline, self-love, spiritual integrity, appreciation, patience, kindness, conservation, cooperation, diplomacy, and cooperation, diplomacy is one kind of put together sense. And I use those tools to keep me in line, to keep my ego in the background, and to keep pushing me towards in a more enlightened Christ consciousness, higher consciousness way of being. And it is definitely presenting to me a wonderful, beautiful life experience. And I embrace challenges. I embrace now the conflicts that come to me to help me clean up my own act from the past.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, and it's been a brilliant conversation. And the one thing that's left me with, I feel that it was an amazing overview, but it has left me a little bit hungry for more detail on each one. So we might at a later stage go through each one in more detail, because it's just going through it. And I guess what a lot of these podcasts, what I need to do is I listen 2 or 3 times, because so much happens that you need to listen over and over really to get all the detail of what you're going through. So that might what I'm craving, but it also might be more practical things, and maybe we might go through it in more detail later on.
Yeah, it would be wonderful to take each one in more detail, and your questions are absolutely wonderful. You have a natural sense of awareness. Maybe you don't realize it, to ask the right question, to really prompt me to expand on the information. So I enjoy talking to you so much. So yes, so that's what we can do. We can look at each one, or maybe 2, the first 1 and 2, 3 and 4, so that listeners can really get into a more sense of awareness of how them into action. Also, if when you work with me more deeply, personally, in your own process, all of these will be brought into action, and your awareness will become more, the uncommon sense of spiritual knowing will grow more and more.